Welcome back for day 20 of our Proverbs daily walkthrough. Today, the Lord wants to talk to us about what He feels about justice, how we squander what He's given us, as well as how to prepare and allow Him to move in our lives. As we've talked about all these 21 days, how much the Lord is involved in things, what He cares about things. I pray that these times of fellowship and really diving into the Word really are beginning to cultivate a desire in you to get to know the Lord better, to get to know yourself better, to allow the Lord to do a deep dive in your life and help you to discern what areas does He want to see some improvement for your own benefit and for the benefit of those that He is calling you to serve. We are not in the earth just for ourselves, and the passages in Proverbs have been really clear about that there are consequences and rewards for the way that we steward our time and our resources and our relationships. And so Proverbs really was written as a guidebook, as a rules of thumb, ways to live, so that we can rule and reign in the earth. And so I pray that up until this point, you are beginning to see how the Lord is changing your perspective and changing the way that you think about things. We're going to hop into chapter 21. Again, I'm in the New King James Version. Would love to hear what your favorite passage or translation of scripture is. I actually like quite a few of them. This just happens to be a physical version that I have, but there are several others that are strewn around my house that I use as well in my times of study, but we're just going to use this one for now. Starting in chapter 21, verse 1, the king's heart is in the hands of the Lord, like the rivers of water. He turns it wherever He wishes. Every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the hearts. To do righteousness and justice is more acceptable to the Lord than sacrifice. A haughty look, a proud look, and plowing of the wicked are sin. The plans of the diligent lead surely to plenty, but those of everyone who is hasty surely to poverty. Getting treasures by a lying tongue is the fleeting fantasy of those who seek death. The violence of the wicked will destroy them because they refuse to do justice. The way of the guilty man is perverse, but as for the pure, his work is right. Better to dwell in the corner of a housetop than in a house shared with a contentious woman. Verse 10, the soul of the wicked desires evil. His neighbor finds no favor in his eyes. When the scoffer is punished, the simple is made wise. But when the wise is instructed, he receives knowledge. The righteous God wisely considers the house of the wicked, overthrowing the wicked for their wickedness. Whoever shuts his ears to the cry of the poor will also cry himself and not be heard. A gift in secret pacifies anger, and a bribe behind the back strong wrath. It is a joy for the just to do justice, but destruction will come to the workers of iniquity. Verse 16, a man who wanders from the way of understanding will rest in the assembly of the dead. He who loves pleasure will be poor. He who loves wine and oil will not be rich. The wicked shall be a ransom for the righteous, and the unfaithful for the upright. Better to dwell in the wilderness than with a contentious and angry woman. There is desirable treasure and oil in the dwelling of the wise, but a foolish man squanders it. He who follows righteousness and mercy finds life, righteousness, and honor. A wise man scales the city of the mighty and brings down the trusted stronghold. Verse 23, whoever guards his mouth and tongue keeps his soul from troubles. A proud and haughty man, scoffer is his name. He acts with arrogant pride. The desire of the lazy man kills him, for his hands refuse to labor. He covets greedily all day long, but the righteous gives and does not spare. The sacrifice of the wicked is an abomination. How much more when he brings it with a wicked intent? A false witness shall perish, but the man who hears him will speak endlessly. A wicked man hardens his face, but as for the upright, he establishes his way. There is no wisdom or understanding or counsel against the Lord. The horse is prepared for the day of battle, but deliverance is of the Lord. And that ends the reading of chapter 21. Again, I'm always looking for themes, again, because it's not been written in exact order, and it wasn't written with the chapters and verses that we have. So I'm just going to go with some of the things that I see that are mutually agreeable, the things that seem to complement one another. Verse 1 and verse 31, it really struck me as being similar. The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord, like the rivers of water. He turns it wherever he wishes. And then the last verse, the horse is prepared for the day of battle, but deliverance is of the Lord. And there are many other verses that talks about the Lord changing the direction or putting desires in your heart, or hardening a heart, or all sorts of things where the Lord has been involved in the outcome. And the Lord is the one who directs our paths. He's the one that makes crooked paths straight. He's the one, we may make plans, but the Lord is the one that leads us down the path that we should go. Again, these are messages that we hear over and over again, that it is okay for us to have ideas. It is okay for us to make plans. It is okay for us to make preparation. That is wisdom. You wouldn't go to battle, like in verse 31, without preparing your troops, without preparing your horses that were taking out into battle. You would not go into battle without preparing your guns. I believe that's probably a very large part of military training, is the preparation for the battle. And so it's not the thing, it is not the king that brings deliverance. It is not the horse that brings deliverance. It's not our plan that is perfected. It is what the Lord does with those things that is most important. He directs things the way that they should go. So what we should be doing is always submitting our plans, always submitting our preparation to the Lord, and allowing Him to direct where it is that we're going to go. And we'll always end up in the place where He desires. So we don't want to resist how the Lord is leading, how the Lord is changing directions, but we want to move with Him and not fight against Him. So those were two that I felt were connected. Then there are another couple that rang true. We have verse 3, verse 7, verse 15, and then I'm going to throw 13 in there as well. Verse 3 says, to do righteousness and justice is more acceptable to the Lord than sacrifice. Verse 7, the violence of the wicked will destroy them because they refuse to do justice. 15, it is a joy for the just to do justice, but destruction will come to the workers of iniquity. And then finally, verse 13, whoever shuts his ears to the cry of the poor will also cry himself and not be heard. God is a God of justice. He's a God of righteousness. He wants to judge rightly. He sees the intents of the hearts. He sees the plans that are in our minds, whether they be good or evil. And He's the one that judges righteously. He knows He is good. He is the only one who understands morality. He is the orchestrator of morality. He's the one that determines what is good and what is not. And justice is something that we've heard many times as we've been going through Proverbs. God cares about justice. He cares about right judgment. He cares about just weights, like we talked about yesterday. The standard of measure needs to be appropriate. It needs to be the same. It doesn't need to be unequally or unfairly weighted because it benefits one person over another. And so when you are someone who does justice, it is better than a sacrifice. And that scripture reminded me that obedience is better than sacrifice. God is calling us to judge righteously. And so that is an act of obedience when we operate in that. And it is better than a sacrifice. Doing what God says and doing it right is better than going without, right? Making a sacrifice. He also talks about it is a joy to do justice. If you think about your own life, when you've seen someone not being treated fairly and you stood up for them and they got what they rightfully deserved, How does that feel? It's got to bring joy. It's got to bring satisfaction to see that the right thing was done. It is not good to turn your face away from things that are unrighteous. And we see those things all the time in our communities, the way that people are treated. Somebody's job is to stand up and speak for those who can't speak for themselves. And if you aren't doing that, in verse 13, it says, whoever shuts his ears to the cry of the poor will also cry himself and not be heard. So God has this whole plan of sowing and reaping. What you give, you will receive. What you sow, you will reap. What you plant will come back to you in harvest. And so if we are sowing injustice, if we are planting deceit and deception, if we are not planting righteousness and justice, we will reap the same. And so not to operate in fear, not to only do things that are right because you want something right to happen to you. That's a reward for doing what is right. The Lord will come to your rescue. The Lord will make sure that you receive mercy, that you will receive justice. But for those who don't dole it out, they will be weeping later because the Lord will not hear them. And no one will come to their rescue. And so do what is right when you can, and don't turn your eyes and your ears away from those who are in need. And so that means the person that's standing on the corner, that's the person that is homeless, that's the child in foster care that needs a place to stay. There are ways that the Lord is inviting us into being a part of the story and the rescue of others. And when we turn a blind eye, it means that when we need righteousness and when we need justice and mercy given to us, the Lord's not going to hear it. So I pray that you are planting justice all around you, and that as a reward that you will receive that same justice. When I look again at verse 9 and 19, where it talks about it is better to dwell in the corner of a housetop, or it's better to dwell in the wilderness. And that word dwell means to live and to habit, to inhabit. Like, I'm in a house, right? Everybody that has a home has a roof of some kind. The roof has no cover. The roof has no shelter. The roof is exposed to all the elements: rain, sleet, snow, shine, hail, right? There's no protection on the roof. Same in the wilderness. There's no protection. There's no roof. There's no covering. You are exposed to the elements. And the Lord is saying it is better to be exposed to the elements than to live and to dwell with someone who is contentious and angry all the time. And this specifically is speaking to women, but I would venture to say this is for anyone who's in constant anger. The word talks about the outbursts of wrath. We talked about the works of the flesh. That's one of those things. If there's always strife, if there's always anger, if there's always division, if there's always name calling and all kinds of things, the Lord does not desire for his people to be subjected to those kinds of environments. And so there's a conviction there for us. If we are in those environments, the Lord is saying we need to consider some distance, right? Secondly, if you are the one that is the contentious one in that house, in that office, in that workplace environment, in that coffee shop, you need to check yourself. The Lord does not desire for us to be at odds with one another. We are called to be at peace. We are called to, be slow to anger, and be slow to speak, but quick to listen. And so that's a heart issue when you are someone who is angry and contentious and full of strife all the time. So this is a conviction for you to seek the Lord. If you have been the cause of that in your environments where you are, the Lord has forgiveness for you. He has a way to heal those areas in your heart where those negative words, that anger that is coming out of your mouth, that the Lord can heal that. But again, as we've talked about over these last couple weeks, that what comes out of the mouth starts in the heart. And so I just pray that you would allow the Lord to do some heart surgery, to work on you, to identify where that contention is rooted, and allow him to lovingly pluck that up and plant seeds of peace and joy in your heart, so that your relationships can be made whole again. It is not the Lord's desire for there to be separation, but for there to be reconciliation. reconciliation. In fact, he desires for people to come together and not be taken apart. So don't allow yourself to continually be used by the enemy to create division where the Lord is not desiring division. The last thing I will bring up is verse 17, 20, and 26. I felt like those were similar themes. So 17 says, he who loves pleasure will be a poor man, and he who loves wine and oil will not be rich. Verse 20 says, there is desirable treasure and oil in the dwelling of the wise, meaning in the home of the wise, but a foolish man squanders it. And then 26, well, actually, I'll read 25 through 26. The desire of the lazy man kills him, for his hands refuse labor. He covets greedily all day long, but the righteous gives and does not spare. So we've talked over the last couple of days, and I think even yesterday, pretty specifically about laziness and not working in the winter, and therefore not having a harvest during the right season. The enemy, desires to pull us away from things that are right. In verse 17, it talks about the person that loves pleasure, the person that loves wine and loves oil. The enemy always comes to pervert. So there's nothing wrong with pleasure in life. There's nothing wrong with wine in life. There's nothing wrong with oil in life. In fact, in 20, it says, in the home of the wise, that's where treasure and oil is, that it's available to those that are wise. But when you are foolish, you will love those things. You will misuse those things. You will squander those things and become lazy. You will covet things, which is what 25 and 26 is talking about. You won't work for it. You'll just desire it. You'll have a love for it. It reminds me of the passage that always gets misinterpreted, where in the New Testament talks about the love of money is the root of all evil. It says, for the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil, meaning not just evil, but different ways evil shows up. Evil doesn't come one way, it comes a million ways. And so the love, the coveting of things that are supposed to be tools and resources is what causes us to act in evil manners. It causes us to be lazy. It causes us to be deceitful. It causes us to do other things. But again, it's a heart issue. It's the love. It's the misplacing of priority. Anything that we elevate above the Lord becomes an idol. And so I believe that's what this is talking about. When we elevate pleasure to a place in our lives that it doesn't belong, it causes us to be poor. When we elevate wine and oil to a place where it doesn't belong, where it becomes something we worship, same thing with money, if it becomes something that we strive after instead of it being a tool or being a resource to us to use periodically, that's when we have a misplacement of things. And then that is what enters in idolatry, which is wickedness, which is sin, which is evil. And it causes us to do all kinds of things because we are in pursuit of something that we are then worshiping. And so I thought that those several scriptures really spoke well of one another. They really complemented one another. But the one thing I want to pull out is that the righteous gives and does not spare. We talked about the other day that generosity is one of those things that opens so many doors. Your gift, your present, your generosity is what makes room for you. When you are a giver, we cannot outgive God, but that's part of his nature. He gives to us. And so it is in our nature to be givers. But if we're going against our nature, if we are resisting our nature, we become selfish, we become hoarders, we become lovers of self, lovers of things, lovers of resources, lovers of money, instead of what those things can do for the kingdom of God, what those things can be used for to benefit other people. It really is a twist on what God's intention is for those things in our lives. So if there are things in your life, maybe that you are striving for, that you are in pursuit of, that maybe you have elevated or you have repositioned its value in your life, this is a reminder. The Lord's like, hey, let me tap into that right here. That's not the place for that in your life, and I want to right size that for you. The Lord has every desire to pour out abundance in all kinds of things to his children. But we have to have enough wisdom, enough understanding to not squander those things and not to use it for things that it shouldn't be used for, to really put things in the proper place where God intends it to be. And if you don't know what that is, ask. The Lord is so faithful to give us directions in the book, to give us direction through wise counsel, which Proverbs is all about that. Who around us is wise, who around us really hears from the Lord and can help us to interpret and understand things that maybe are outside of our scope and reach. And are we tapping into what the Lord has given to us? So I pray that this has been a blessing to you, that you've gotten a nugget or two out of this. Please share what passage made the most sense to you, which one maybe convicted you, which one maybe you need to take before the Lord for him to begin to do some heart surgery on you. And I encourage you to allow the Lord to use his word, to use wise counsel, to use even this ministry here, to be able to shed some light on things that he desires to make good in your life. He desires for us to become more like him, and he is wise. And he is not a fool, and he wants us to be the same way. And we do that by leaning into him. So I bless you. I hope to see you tomorrow for chapter 22 as we round out our last week of really diving into the wisdom of Proverbs and the wisdom that the Lord gave Solomon to give to us in this day and time. God bless you, and I'll see you tomorrow.